Welcome and thank you so much for stopping by, spending a few minutes of your day with Galadon Gaming. And yes, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend, Clashers recommend. What we're talking about here is the abundance of the same deck at the top end of Clash Royale right now. It is out of control. The Hog Cycle deck is so common. We're going to look at all of the top 10 players, and you'll notice that 9 out of 10 of them have a Hog Rider. Most of them also have a cannon, and a large majority of them have the Zap spell, a Princess, a Valkyrie, and the very common deck is going to involve the Musketeer, the Valkyrie, the Zap spell, the Poison spell, the cannon, the Hog Rider, and maybe one Elixir Skeletons. A few other things happen in here from time to time, but 9 out of the top 10 players are using almost the exact same deck. Everybody's got that Hog Rider. It is so versatile, and yes, many see it as overpowered. And, well, I'm hoping, and of course this will happen, that we will see more diversity in the future, because you guys know it's happened in the past, and it's not because I'm talking about it. It is simply statistics. Because everybody is using this deck and winning with it, obviously, because they're at the top, there are going to be changes that bring this deck into balance, and that means that specific cards in this deck, most likely the Hog Rider, maybe even the Zap spell, maybe the Princess, the Musketeer, the Valkyrie, but most certainly the Hog Rider, as we saw that in 9 out of those 10 decks. Now, I've talked about it before, and I still insist that better than just simply nerfing speed, time, hit points, or damage, it is better to introduce other cards that might be a good counter or lure people away from using overused cards, especially at the top right now, like the Hog Cycle deck. Now, that could mean offensive or defensive cards, but as far as specific ideas, I don't really have any right now. Just really hoping that maybe you guys and of course the Clash team come up with some good ideas going into the future. But this deck right here that I'm using is so well balanced. It has so many different cards in it that can serve different functions on offense and defense. And because this deck is so versatile and can counter things like Royal Giant, Golem, P.E.K.K.A. Double Prince, other Hog decks, even the minor decks, that is why we are seeing it used so much. So if this deck had a specific weakness against other cards, then we might see players being forced to switch things up a little bit, move in some other cards, and maybe even move away from the Hog Rider. But right here you see the Hog move in, and the preferred counter, of course, is the cannon. And that is the thing about this deck. It's called the Hog Cycle, and because you are cycling through these cards, one of the keys to victory, even when you're facing the identical deck, is to catch your opponent off cycle, unable to counter a push. Right here, the Valkyrie and the Musketeer both get to the tower, and that is surprising about this deck. You would think the Hog Rider is the offensive card, but more often than not, I am getting to the tower using the Musketeer and the Valkyrie. The Hog is a good distraction. It puts pressure on your opponent, sometimes causes them to overreact, to overcommit Elixir to stop that push, and then you can get in there with the Valkyrie and the Musketeer. Now, as we saw right there, my opponent has the lightning spell instead of my poison, and that does definitely work to nullify the elixir collectors pretty frequently, and of course take a lot of damage off those towers. Here he does get a Hog in. I squeeze in a cannon too little too late. I take some damage on the left hand side, but I've gone up 1 tower to 0, and as time counts down, things are looking pretty good. There's no way he's going to be able to take an entire tower down. The poison spell, the defense here, even with a lightning spell, not going to happen. Time is going to count down, and I am going to take this one 1 crown to 0. Now, the purpose of this episode is not to further advertise this deck. I feel like everybody already knows about Hog Cycle type decks, but really it's to talk about the fact that diversity is coming, change is coming, balance is good, and we are always going to see things continually change in this game. Now, it's good to get good at one deck, but you also need to work on leveling up all of your cards, because you never know what the next big card is going to be. Because try as the Clash Royale team might to try to get balance perfect, I doubt it's ever going to happen. There are always going to be decks and cards that have a slight advantage that work well in almost every situation, like we see the Hog Cycle deck right now. Now, we've moved to a replay of my level 9 account, and I'm facing a Sparky deck, and I definitely have a love-hate relationship with Sparky. I think it's such a unique card, very cool looking, but I hate to face it. I love to have my Zap spell ready though, and facing a Sparky really comes down to critical timing. I love to get a Valkyrie in the middle of this, and although the Sparky will not one-shot my Valkyrie, I always try to discharge that first charge either with a zap spell or with single elixir skeletons to make the Valkyrie last longer. There, she helps finish off the Sparky and she takes out the princess before moving on. So I've successfully countered the first Sparky drop, but we know it's going to come again, and I also know that the vast majority of players that have Sparky also will bring a giant or a royal giant in their hand. Now we're both elixir pumping, but one of the keys to the Hog Cycle deck is to keep constant pressure on your opponent, to keep pushing forward. That way he is forced to counter constantly. Right here the Hog just about gets in, but watch the value I get out of this poison spell. The Royal Giant, the Barbarians, all getting poisoned. The Barbarians are just about to go down, and by the time the Royal Giant gets in here, the barbs are out of the way, the cannon can go right to work, and the timing right here could not be better. The Sparky fires on the cannon as the Giant was just about to destroy it as well, so that saves me a lot. I'm able to get the Valkyrie in there. The Valkyrie works on Sparky, the zap spell stalls, and the tower is able to take down Sparky before it got a single shot off. The princess getting a few shots in. We're going to take her out with the musketeer, and again pushing forward, the musketeer and the Hog together, countered by barbs and a Valkyrie, but the Hog is going to get in there and get one shot off, and sometimes one shot is enough. Again, great value out of the poison. Look at that placement. That was ideal. Grabs the princess too. That was critical, getting the princess out of the way. Royal Giant focuses on the cannon. The poison spell wears off, but not before it does its job, and we completely wipe out everything. The Royal Giant only getting one shot on the tower. Just about 20 seconds left. The opponent drops another Sparky. This poison, kind of questionable right here, but it is going to work out. It slows the Sparky enough that he is never going to get another shot off after taking out the Valkyrie. And now I'm just stacking up little bits and pieces of damage. I would call this a bit of panic. The poison spell, the zap spell. As time runs out, I know I just need to get a couple more shots off. Here comes the Royal Giant, a great chance to try to squeeze a Hog Rider by. It gets in there. It is on the tower. Just one more shot should do the trick, and that is it. Just barely with the zap spell, the Hog Rider takes the tower down, and I grab the overtime win. So the Hog Rider, not necessarily overpowered, but definitely overused. Look for balance changes coming to a deck near you, and hopefully we will see more diversity in Clash Royale. Thank you guys, as always, for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe for daily Clash content, and I hope to see every last one of you back here again tomorrow for more Full Attacks.
Galadon, you copied my Daily Cry Cycle Deacon, just gave it another name. Shame on you.